we're going to see these events episodically over the next 4 or 5 years. Every now and again it'll crop up because the debt problems in the US and Europe are getting worse, not better. And the events of the last few days are just another crisis of confidence, and they'll solve the problem in the shorter term and it'll crop up again later.
Is our future now even more dependent on China and Australia?
Yeah, I think you're seeing New Zealand businesses now starting to shift their focus. People who've exported to Europe and the US are now being hit with a higher currency. They can see that the consumers in those markets aren't going to be feeling too good for a while, and so they're shifting focus. And that's one of the benefits for New Zealand in the big shift that's gone on in the last 4 or 5 years, that the faster growing markets are shifting closer to us, and our exports into those markets are growing fairly fast.
So if you look at something like the TPP versus the India Free Trade Agreement, presumably the India market becomes far more important, does it, than breaking into a market like the US now?
Well, look at the trade agreement with India as an investment in the future. It's an economy that's really picking up speed, and there's clearly a lot of potential there. The US is still a market still a good market for high value products, and we certainly want access to more of it if we can get it, but it clearly doesn't have the potential ahead of it that India does.
Are we in better shape now to handle this bout of this lack of confidence in the markets than we were in late 2008?
Yes, we are. The government's in better shape because it's got its debt under control. The Reserve Bank knows more about how to handle the crisis because it learned a lot from 2008. But I think most importantly, New Zealanders are in better shape. I mean, we're getting used to this sort of buffeting, and we've shown a lot of resilience over the last 2 or 3 years. Households have got the messages from the world that they need to borrow a bit less and save a bit more, and that's all helping.
But the budget's forecast. So you disagree with Standard & Poor's, who yesterday said basically the government's balance sheet is still bearing the scars of the events of the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years?
Well, it still is, in the sense that, for instance, this last year we ran a very large deficit driven significantly by the earthquake. But what's important is we've got a track that's taking us back to surplus, which would give us one of the stronger balance sheets around if we can achieve that, and we're determined to achieve it.
But the Standard & Poor's have got it wrong.
Well, look, Standard & Poor's will have their opinions. We're happy with the progress we're making. If events around the world turn out significantly worse, we would have to go back and have another look. But we believe we're on track.
Will it mean that unemployment takes longer to come down, this latest share market crisis again?
Well, we've yet to see what it turns into. If it turns into significantly less demand for our products, then that could have some impact on unemployment. But on the other hand, it won't have much impact at all on the Christchurch rebuild, which is going to be quite a driver of employment over the next couple of years.
Despite the talk of households pulling their heads in, the budget's still forecasting national debt as a proportion of GDP increasing in the years ahead. So where's the real improvement?
Well, I think that the improvement is just in the actual savings rate. In 2007, New Zealanders saved they spent about $1.11 for every dollar that they earned, and this year it'll be about dollar for dollar, and might even tighten up a bit from that. So, New Zealand households are generally headed in the right direction. I don't think there's anyone out there who is confused about what signals the world is sending us around debt.
Well, why is debt going up though, or forecast to go up?
There's an argument over the technicalities of what's called the net international investment position, and it's complicated by the fact that there's quite big insurance flows around the earthquake. But look, I think New Zealand households understand what they need to do. We've had a more moderate and careful adjustment than a lot of countries. So they haven't changed behaviour dramatically, but they're headed in the right direction.
Will those surplus and debt tracks still be credible, even though if the US and EU economies are basically stagnant for the next decade or two?
Well, we think that there's no reason to change the tracks that we forecast from the last budget. We've just been through a phase where a month ago, it looked like our forecasts weren't optimistic enough. The month before that, people thought they were too optimistic. I mean, we're in a volatile world. We just want to focus on the basics, which is controlling the spending, making sure we've got a fair tax system that gets the revenue in, and focusing on becoming competitive to support our exporters. So that those are the factors we can influence. Whatever happens in the rest of the world, we're sticking to the core program around supporting our exporters, getting our infrastructure investment done, reforming public services, because whether things are better or worse in the US, we still need to do those things.